Oregon fans, what's going on? How's everybody doing? Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Ducks Dish podcast. It is Monday, November 21st. In case you're new here, I'm your host, Max Torres. A little bit of a different setup today. I did not pack my microphone. I'm actually back home in San Jose right now, but I did bring the webcam, so hopefully the audio quality is doable. Um, and you guys can kind of just hang in with me there, bear with me there. But had to get on here on YouTube for some big breaking news for the Oregon Ducks on the recruiting trail. Um, let's see. I mean, I had my flight out of Long Beach this morning, and I checked my phone after I landed, and there it is, a new commitment for Oregon. And we are going to talk all about that commitment on this episode of the Ducks Dish podcast. But before we get into that, if you guys are here on YouTube and the live stream, youtube.com/Oregon Football Max Torres is where you can always find us. Go ahead and leave me a comment. Let me know what you think about this commitment and how you're feeling about Oregon recruiting right now. Let me know where you're tuning in from. Anything like that. Always love to see where you guys are at and engage with you guys. Maybe you can ask some questions. We'll also talk about what's next for Oregon on the recruiting trail following this commitment, because as you know, there can so often be domino effects in recruiting, and we're just about a month away from the early signing period. So with all that being said, let's get into today's show. 2024 offensive lineman Fox Crader has committed to the Oregon Ducks out of Vancouver, Washington, Evergreen High School. He is the second commitment in Oregon's 2024 recruiting class. And we got plenty to get into here talking about Fox Crader's game. I don't have my second monitor, unfortunately, so I can't bring. Actually, I can still throw on some tape. Let me see if I can pull that up actually to talk a little bit about kind of Fox Crader and his game. Let's see. I'm gonna try to. That's a lot of stuff. I have too many tabs open. Never mind. We're not gonna do that. But that's okay because we still have a lot to talk about. You guys should go check out his film. But I'm gonna try to get into a little bit of a breakdown. Talk about what kind of prospect Fox Crader is. I'm trying to get a little bit better at evaluation. And then what I really like talking about is the story, how the commitment happened, the recruitment, and the impacts that this is going to have for Oregon and Dan Lanning on the recruiting trail as they start to turn up the heat in 2024. So just off the top, talking a little bit about Fox Crader and what he's like as a prospect. Fox Crader is 6'6", 275, 280-pound offensive lineman. He played a lot of left tackle this year for Evergreen High School in Vancouver, Washington, which is really close to the Portland area. But I think what really stands out to me when I flip on the tape for Fox Crader is how he moves. He moves really, really well. And he's really fluid, whether it's in the run game or in the pass game. I think that one of the areas that you focus on with offensive linemen is their feet, their hips, and their hands. And with Fox Crader, his hips are not stuck, and he knows how to get out in space, and he moves really well. The dude knows how to finish blocks. He plays with a lot of physicality at the point of attack, which is obviously something that you want. But as far as kind of how he projects at Oregon, I think, he's a little bit of a, not as highly rated of a guy. I'm looking at his 247 sports profile right now. 247 has him as the number 16 offensive tackle in 2024, the number 9 player in the state of Washington. But I think he has a really good frame right now. I think Oregon usually likes to have guys playing closer to 300 pounds. So he's only a junior right now, so he has all of his senior season. Kind of what we're looking at right now is you kind of want to get some more weight on his frame. And I think once you get him into this program with Wilson Love and the coaching staff at Oregon with Adrian Clem and Vianney Talamaiva, then I think that this is a really high upside prospect. So I don't think right now that I would project him as someone who maybe has a super early impact, but between now and when he arrives at Oregon in 2024, Oregon's offensive line picture is going to look a whole lot different. Obviously, they're going to be losing 4 starters at least this year, it looks like. But we have to see what happens. As we know, in the Utah game, Alex Forsyth wasn't able to go, so Ryan Walk slid over to center, and Stephen Jones made his return for the first game since the Eastern Washington game. I feel like with how limited he's put, the limited amount of snaps and games that he's played this year, maybe Stephen Jones comes back in 2023. We don't really know, but we're kind of starting to get into that discussion in that part of the season with the regular season finale against Oregon State this weekend. After that, we're gonna start seeing the transfer portal window open at the beginning of December. So we'll have plenty to track there. But back to Fox Crader, talking about him, I really like him as a prospect. Not a booming recruitment exactly. A lot of Pac-12 schools were involved in this recruitment. He's originally from Lubbock, Texas, which is kind of a fun fact that I found out when I originally talked to him for the first time. But this recruitment really came down to Oregon, Washington, USC, and Oregon State. Those are all schools that he was very high on. That was kind of the top group that he was working from. Had 19 reported offers, also including Miami in his recruitment. But that's kind of the core group that he was working from. And what's interesting with Fox Crader is I was kind of beating myself up a little bit because when this news broke, I was kind of thinking, wow, this was a commitment that I should have seen coming from a mile away. And the reason I say that is because Fox Crader has visited for every Oregon game this season. He was on campus for the Utah game. So Oregon obviously made a very recent impression, and looks like they wrapped that one up over the weekend. He was also in town for, I guess I could say any game. I don't know which one I was trying to refer to, but he got his dad out here on a visit with him. His dad still lives in Texas, so that was big for the Ducks to get him and his father on campus, just to kind of make sure that he's more comfortable with it. But what stood out as far as the story with this recruitment with Fox Crader is that he told me that Oregon recruited him harder than anyone. And I was asking him, why are you coming out to all these games? Why are you getting to Oregon so much? And he was saying, when they love you and they're showing you that love, you got to show it back. So this was a recruitment that Oregon really just outworked the other schools that were involved. And another storyline that kind of stands out to me with this recruitment is that you also want to prioritize the Northwest talent when it's there. It's another Pacific Northwest guy in the fold in this 2024 recruiting class, with tight end AJ Pugliano being the other commitment for Oregon in 2024. He's out of North Bend High School. So another North Medford. Maybe I think I might have written that the wrong city in the story. So I'll have to go back and edit that later. But case in point, Oregon's class here, you have two really strong 2024 Northwest prospects that are already in the fold here. And I think that it just makes sense to prioritize those guys when you have them in your backyard, when you have players that you believe are closer to you and they have the ability to contribute for your team, which is kind of interesting because I think I was writing earlier today and thinking the 2023 class for Oregon, they have 4 offensive linemen in the fold right now. And I don't really think – I think the only one that kind of projects to maybe having an early impact is Iapani Laulaulu. You got George Silva, who I saw a couple weeks ago at Fullerton. Maybe it was just last week, actually. Time's kind of a blur. And then Lipe Moala out of Mater Dei. He's hurt, unfortunately. I went to the Mater Dei game on Friday, and then he wasn't able to play. I didn't even know he was hurt. So I was excited to see him play, and ultimately didn't get to see him play. But Lipe Moala is also in the fold. And then you also have Bryce Bolton out of Southern California. So you have a lot of pieces, but maybe it looks like Oregon's kind of going a little bit more for volume in the 2023 class. And we'll also see what happens in the transfer portal at offensive line. I wouldn't be surprised at all to see Oregon do some more searching in the transfer portal for offensive linemen, given the fact that they're slated to lose so many guys after this season. But Fox Crader, kind of a Pac-12 recruitment, like I mentioned, did have some national offers a little bit further east, like Miami coming in there. So I think this is a great win for Oregon. And like I tweeted earlier, reminder, if you're not locked in with me on Twitter, it's very important that you lock in at Torres Sports, where you can find the quickest updates. This Oregon class in 2024 could take off in a hurry. And there's a number of guys that I want to talk about as far as kind of what's next for Oregon and some names that I think are pretty warm. Definitely feeling the Ducks. So with that in mind, we're going to go ahead and take a quick break here on the Ducks Dish podcast. Don't go anywhere. We got more Oregon football analysis, more Oregon football recruiting breakdown for you after this. Welcome back to the Ducks Dish podcast. I'm your host, Max Torres. We're rocking and rolling on a Monday afternoon now in San Jose, California, not in Long Beach. But we're live on YouTube, and we got some folks here at youtube.com/Oregon Football Max Torres. If you guys are watching live, make sure to leave me a comment and hit the like button. I got some more stuff to get to, but I want to maybe try to get to some comments and questions here. So if you guys have one that you want to run by me, throw it in there, and I'll do my best to answer it. Never got to apologize for the late start on today's stream, but I did see a funny comment from Christopher. He said, "Quick, someone get that guy a Snapple." And it's puts a smile on my face to know that some of my listeners know that I like Snapple. I'm still waiting for the sponsor. Snapple, if you're out there, I got home to San Jose and put one in my mom's fridge, like right when I got home. So, I'm looking forward to that later. But I digress. Let's get some more stuff going here, talking about kind of what's next for Oregon. So, in the world of recruiting right now, I think that Crader's commitment can kind of fly under the radar a little bit because we're just about a month away from the early signing period with the class of 2023 recruits. And if you've been following recruiting at all in the past couple of years, you know that that is the day, that the early signing period days, I should say, plural, that is the period to watch. The traditional February 1st signing day, the later signing day, has lost a lot of its glamour, a lot of its allure, with most recruits signing and committing during that December early signing period. And the reason that you're seeing that is because it's becoming more important for recruits and for coaches to get these guys on campus early and get them going through the winter, strength and conditioning program and getting them acclimated to college life and getting them ready for spring ball. We didn't see that so much with Oregon this year, but one of Oregon's best players this year, Troy Franklin, he was an early enrollee and he made an impact last year. And then you also saw Jaleel Florence in the 2022 class. He was an early enrollee, but that was more so in the spring. So a little bit of a delayed early enrollee, if you could say. But let's stick with 2023. And then I'm going to go ahead and talk about some 2024 names that I am feeling pretty confident about right now in terms of where Oregon stands with those guys. So make sure that you stick around for that. But let's stick on 2023 and talk about some of the biggest names right now. I just published a recent recruiting update from one of Oregon's visitors for the Utah game just before I came on the stream here, and that is 2023 Lakeland, Florida offensive tackle Janoris Wilson. He's a big name to watch right now along the offensive line. Kind of a guy that I had heard some rumblings about a little bit, but I know that Oregon's in a really good spot, especially after they got him on campus this weekend. Like I said, the full visit recap with all the quotes from Torres is over on Ducks Digest right now. So go give that a look if you haven't already. But the reason I thought this was interesting, not only is he a newer name to watch for Oregon on the recruiting trail, but he made that trip all the way across the country from Lakeland, Florida to Eugene, Oregon on his own dime, as in an unofficial visit. And I thought that was big because I asked him kind of what's your decision timeline looking like? What other trips do you have going on? And he was saying, I'm focused on my high school season right now. But they're still playing. And he made the visit all the way across the country to Eugene. So I thought that it was huge for Oregon to get him on campus. And the good thing about this one is Adrian Clem is really emerging as the lead recruiter here, as you would expect with an offensive lineman. But Oregon's really taking that holistic approach. I asked him who he got to spend the most time with at Oregon from the staff, and he was saying it was pretty much everybody. But really, it was Adrian Clem. I think that was one of the main guys that he got to spend most of his time with. He was talking about how they just kind of really hit it off, and he really fits his personality, and he likes him as a coach. And I asked him, you're getting recruited by all these schools, nearly 20 reported offers for Janoris Wilson. What makes Oregon different? and he said that it's his relationship with Clem. So we know how big relationships are in the recruiting scene, and Oregon's got a really good one established right now with Adrian Clem and Janoris Wilson. And the thing that stands out and that is notable, I think, aside from everything he said about Oregon and loving the town and the atmosphere, got to spend time with players like Josh Connerly, Dave Yulee, and amongst other offensive linemen. He's going to be coming back. He's going to be coming back to Eugene for an official visit. He has two more official visits right now that are in place. He told me he's going to be making it out to Chapel Hill to see the North Carolina Tar Heels on December 9th. That's the official visit. That's the first official visit. Maybe I shouldn't say first because I don't know which other ones he's taken. I know he's been to Auburn at least once, but he's taken an official visit to North Carolina. And Janoris Wilson is after visiting Oregon over the weekend. And then that following weekend, which would be December 16th, I believe, he's going to be taking an official visit to Oregon, it looks like. So that's a very important visit for the Ducks because it's right before the early signing period. I thought that was really notable that they're able to get two visits really within a month of each other, especially from a guy who's all the way across the country. We know how important it is for Oregon to continue pushing into Florida. I've been banging that drum. You got to get into Florida a little bit more. Haven't really had too many recruits that have made a big impact of late, except for Brandon Dorless. And man, what a game he had against Utah. So that's big. Janoris Wilson's a guy that you got to watch on the recruiting trail for Oregon in 2023, specifically along the offensive line. The other name is Caden Proctor, the five-star Iowa offensive line commit. He is, a name that's buzzing right now on the recruiting trail after he took an official visit to Oregon for that Washington game. I knew that visit was happening, so I was kind of excited. I was teasing it a little bit on Twitter. I said, David Hicks isn't the only five-star. Elijah Rushing isn't the only five-star coming to Oregon this weekend. And then sure enough, Caden Proctor pulls up for his official visit as an Iowa commit. And Oregon is not stopping their push for Caden Proctor here on the recruiting trail in 2023. How do we know that? Well, it stands to reason that they obviously didn't stop recruiting him after he committed to Iowa. But Adrian Clem made the trip out to Des Moines to see Southeast Polk and Caden Proctor capture an Iowa State title last Friday. And then Clem came back to make sure that he was back in time to help lead the Oregon offensive line against Utah, an offensive line that was banged up. Still played a pretty solid game, I think. You saw Ryan Walk slide over. Marcus Harper still continues to be a standout performer for Oregon along the offensive line. So Oregon, I think, especially with the early signing period approaching now, I think those trips that the coaches take to go see guys that still aren't committed, that are still on their board, you're getting less and less opportunities to do that with the early signing period getting closer. So the value of those visits, the value of the face time that you get in front of these recruits, I think gets all of that more important. And Oregon is still applying the full court press with Caden Proctor here. Kind of seems like it's going to be Oregon or Iowa, seeing that he's currently committed. But I'm feeling pretty good about Oregon's chances to pull off that flip for Caden Proctor. I need to do a little bit more digging there to see what they can do. A couple other names in 2023 that you want to monitor. It's going to be Spencer Fano. He's another offensive lineman that you want to keep an eye on. He's taking official visits to Oregon and Utah. He's also made it out to Michigan State. And I want to say that he's going to be I thought he was going to be looking at Clemson as well, because that was a later offer in his recruitment. But I'm not totally sure. What I do know about that recruitment, though, is that Spencer Fano announced that he would be making this commitment on December 6th. So that's another early signing period guy opportunity there. Oregon's been doing a really, really good job in the state of Utah. Haven't seen. Let's see. Speaking of the state of Utah, rather, let me backtrack a little bit. Tavita Pomee, Oregon's 2023 defensive line commit out of Layton, Utah. He was on campus for a visit this past weekend from the state of Utah. You also have Ben Roberts from the 2022 class. So Oregon has definitely been putting in some work in the state of Utah. That's a state that's been really, really kind to them. I know that the Fano family is is also close with the Jackson Powers Johnson family. So Oregon's definitely made a lot of inroads into that state. Jeff Foss is playing well also this year. So Spencer Fano is a name that you definitely want to monitor there for Oregon on the 2023 class. Someone that could be next. I'm not sure if I'm gonna predict that he's gonna commit to Oregon just yet. I wanted that's kind of the next step, and one of these things I want to do. Maybe some more prediction pieces as far as who I think could end up committing to Oregon as I gather more intel. Other names, you have Roderick Pleasant, the 2023 corner out of Junipero Serra in Gardena, California. He took his third official visit in his recruitment. He took his third official visit, and that was to Oregon over the weekend for the Utah game. You saw some big plays from defensive backs like Bennett Williams, his 2 picks against Utah that earned him Defensive Player of the Week in the Pac-12. And you also have Dalen Austin. He's another big name to monitor in the 2023 class. He's currently committed to LSU, but I'm feeling really good about Oregon ending up with Dalen Austin as it stands today. So that's kind of the names that we have to monitor. I'd also throw out 2023 Bishop Gorman wide receiver Trek Kekahuna. I think that's how you say his name. Maybe it's Trek, but he is at Bishop Gorman. He's visited Oregon before. Following, he has also decommitted from Wisconsin, so former Wisconsin commit. And we're kind of seeing what other pieces Oregon could add at wide receiver here in the 2023 class. So those are some of the names to watch in 2023. Let's look at 2024. I'm going to go ahead and change the banner here, the ticker, and we'll just get this rolling still. The recruiting trail in 2024. There we go. All right, let's talk about 2024 and what's going on there for Oregon. Oregon's 2024 class currently ranks number 18 in the country and number 2 in the Pac-12, according to the 247 rankings, behind USC in the Pac-12. USC has 3 commitments, so Oregon's 2024 class could definitely pick up some steam here. There are a number of guys that I know they're feeling really good about, and that I feel good about. I think the one that I'd say I have to feel the most confident about right now is Brandon Baker, the modern-day offensive lineman in Southern California at Santa Ana. I saw his game against Los Alamitos last Friday, and he was wearing Oregon cleats from their Stomp Out Cancer collection against UCLA. That's an Oregon legacy, seeing that his older brother Gary played in Eugene before the Ducks, played on the other side of the ball at defensive line. But I feel really confident about where Oregon stands with Brandon Baker right now. I wouldn't expect anything to happen super soon, though. We did see that Instagram story where I think maybe one of his friends might have taken his phone and taken a picture of him and just written in, I'm committed to Oregon, and he was in an Oregon hoodie or something, but nothing really came of that. But I think that Oregon probably still leads for Brandon Baker with all the trips that he's taken. His teammate Lipe Moala is committed there. So there's a lot of things in Oregon's favor there with Brandon Baker on the recruiting trail in 24. One of the reasons that I think that nothing's going to happen super soon is because he just got offered by Georgia, recently took a trip out to Penn State. So that recruitment just continues to build steam. Recently was rated and ranked, I should say, the number 1 offensive tackle in 2024 by 247 Sports. So, you see these ranking updates, and some new schools hop on board sometimes. But he's just an absolute beast. Got to talk to him after the game against Los Alamitos, and he's just a force, and no school is going to turn him away. So I think Oregon feels good there, but we'll have to see what happens with Brandon Baker. Another name that you want to keep an eye on is Justin Williams, the 2024 linebacker out of Texas. I think that Oregon's in a really good spot with him. I thought that things were in a really good spot following a visit earlier this season. I can't remember which game it was, but he's been out on campus for a visit, and I think the Ducks are in an awesome spot with him, Justin Williams. So keep an eye on Justin Williams. I wanted to get a little bit more information about where he was from. Let me see. Okay, he's from Oak Ridge in Conroe, Texas, the number 5 linebacker in the country, according to 247 Sports, top 65 guy. So keep an eye out for Justin Williams as well as far as what's next for Oregon in the 2024 class. I think Oregon's in a great spot there, even though he has some in-state offers from schools like Houston and Baylor. So Justin Williams, another guy to monitor. Someone I've talked to multiple times that I want to mention now briefly is Dylan Williams, the 2024 linebacker out of Long Beach Poly, right in my backyard in Long Beach. He was on campus for an Oregon visit when they played Utah. Oregon's been super high on his list. I view them as a top school for Dylan Williams, rather, following his decommitment from USC earlier this season. And Dylan Williams is quite simply put, one of the best in the country at his position as a linebacker. Number 12 linebacker in the country, top 120 guy according to the 247 Sports Composite. He also took a recent visit to Texas. So it's interesting to see them. They were a newer school that's gotten involved here. I know he was also liking Utah a bit after he decommitted from USC. So I think that I feel really good about where Oregon's at in that recruitment with Dylan Williams. Obviously, they're prioritizing the Southern California area quite a bit. And that's music to my ears because that's one of the reasons that I moved to Los Angeles to cover some of these guys. So I think those are some of the names that you want to keep an eye on. I would also think that Oregon's going to continue pushing for a quarterback in 2024. Elijah Brown has been on campus multiple times, the modern-day quarterback who still hasn't lost a game at the high school level. He started since he was a true freshman, and he has just continued to impress every time I see him. He's just an absolute beast. So I know that he's one of the quarterbacks at the top of their board in 2024. Miles Jackson out of Long Beach Millikan is another guy you want to keep an eye on. I'd be curious to see if they maybe try to get Damon Williams on campus. He's teammates with Cole Martin, who's committed to Oregon in 2023. Damon Williams is at Basha High School out there in Arizona. Another guy that was on campus recently, Miles Lockhart, for Oregon in 2024. He's a big target. So those are three huge names at Basha High School. Our Josh Parker had a recent interview with Miles Lockhart over on Ducks Digest, and he has Oregon as a top school, and he's also eyeing official visits, trying to get that figured out for the spring. So that's one of the weirdest things now that we kind of have to think about. You have about a month until the early signing period, and then right after that, before you know it, the 2024s are going to be on the clock. And a lot of guys that I'm talking to, they want to have that decision, wrapped up and taken care of before their senior season. So that's definitely something to monitor here with the 2024s. And that's why I said that Oregon's 2024 class could take off pretty quickly here before long as we begin to turn the page to the 2024s following the early signing period. I think we did have some comments here I wanted to get to. No Korutai says go Ducks, so he's here. Let's see here. Raymond has a question. What would you consider likely for the Ducks in the NCAA rankings for the 2023 class? Yeah, this is a good one, a good question here. So Oregon currently ranks, I think it's 11th in the 24/7 rankings for the 2023 class. Okay, 12th. They currently rank 12th in the country according to 247 Sports. Dante Moore and Jurion Dickey are some of the headliners there in Dan Lanning's 2023 class. Some good news for Oregon is that Dante Moore reaffirmed his commitment to the Ducks over the weekend in an interview following his high school game with Martin Luther King High School. He said he was asked about the rumors and about a potential flip to Michigan State, and he said, "Go Ducks! I'm locked in with Oregon." So that is huge for Oregon to hang on to him as we get to the early signing period. And you figure more than any position, probably you want to get your quarterback signed early and enrolled early on top of that. So I think with some of the guys that Oregon is still pushing for in 23, like Dalen Austin, Caden Proctor, Roderick Pleasant, I'm feeling really good about where they're at with all those guys. I think that a top 10 class is certainly well within reach for the Ducks here as we enter December and really the back end of the season here for the Ducks on the recruiting trail. So I think a top 10 class is certainly within reach. I don't know if they're going to pass the programs record mark at number 6. I want to say it was. I think number 6 was the highest ranking that they've ever had with the 2019 class. Number 7, according to 247 Sports, that was the class that had Kayvon Thibodeau, Michael Wright, Jonathan Onuu, who didn't really play too much at Oregon. He medically retired. Mace Funa, Sean Dollars. So guys like that were the ones that really kind of set the mark for Oregon as far as where their rankings and where things go at the peak of recruiting history for Oregon. But we all know that just because Mario Cristobal left, Dan Lanning's not gonna sleep, and he's not gonna take his foot off the gas pedal on the recruiting trail. Got another comment from Micah. He said, not a comment, but a statement. Lanning got cute and lost us the game against UW and almost lost us the Utah game. Yeah, that was a question that he got asked following that Utah game was, just the thinking behind that first play of the second half with Ty Thompson and Dante Thornton that got fumbled for a scoop and score. That was an absolute head scratcher, without a doubt. And then just to comment on the Washington game, that was another head scratcher, kind of with that third down play call that resulted in Bo Nix unfortunately getting banged up, and then things kind of started to go off the rails there. So totally hear where you're coming from, but fortunately for the Ducks, the Pac-12 title is still within range, and so is a Rose Bowl. Maybe that would be an interesting thing to talk about. I know a lot of fans are I feel like the Rose Bowl is kind of getting put down like it's not a premier bowl game, the granddaddy of them all. I think that Oregon fans are probably tired of the Rose Bowl, but just to kind of put things into perspective under Dan Lanning's first year at Oregon, I think that a Rose Bowl and a Pac-12 title and a Rose Bowl appearance even would be awesome, just because there's so much you have to do to keep up with a lot of these other blue blood programs in college football. So I understand the frustration from the Washington game, and I think that he's definitely facing the noise when it comes to dealing with his criticism as a first year head coach. But he's one of the youngest, if not the youngest, head coach in college football, and I think this season's going as well as you could hope. But I will say that that Washington game was incredibly winnable. That was one of my thoughts walking away from that game, is that they definitely could have won. It was right there. But that'll do it for us on this episode of the Ducks Dish podcast. Just wanted to get on here and break down Oregon's latest commitment on the recruiting trail in 2024, Vancouver, Washington offensive lineman Fox Crader. Before I get out of here, a quick favor to ask of you guys: make sure you follow me on Twitter at mtorresports. Smash the like button and smash the subscribe button. I think we just hit 1,900 subs on the YouTube channel, which is awesome. Really appreciate your support, and we are on the journey to 2,000 subscribers. It would be awesome if we could get there before the end of the year. Maybe that's an ambitious goal, but we got to swing high, swing for the fences. But that'll do it for us on this episode of the Ducks Dish podcast. I'm your host, Max Torres. Until next time, we will see you in the next episode. And thank you so much for listening to another episode of the Ducks Dish podcast.